Hello every pony and welcome to my review of Magic Duel. Remember the good old days when bronies actually respected M.A. Larson as one of the greatest writers on the show? You all know this man's track record, so I don't have to go into detail on how many fantastic episodes he's written. Little did we know, Hasbro would drive him to do something that would make many fans hate him and leave the fandom. This, however, was not that episode. Many fans knew going into this episode that we would see the return of Trixie, as it was spoiled by the synopsis and the promo clips for the episode, and most of us were excited for it. Did Trixie's reappearance live up to the hype, though? Let's take a look at Magic Duel by M.A. Larson. The episode begins with a cloaked pony entering a shop in some unknown part of Equestria. The shopkeeper realizes that this pony entered his shop for a reason, and that reason being the Alicorn amulet, a magical charm with dangerous powers. The shopkeeper is hesitant to sell the artifact to the mysterious mare, but, just like in real life, money talks as she dumps a huge sack of bits onto his table and he happily sells her the amulet. One theme song later, Fluttershy is watching over her animal friends as Twilight practices a levitation spell on them. Unlike the transformation spell in Too Many Pinkie Pies, I can buy this instance of practicing already learned magic more. We've seen Twilight use levitation spells even more frequently than her transformation spells, but the reason this time feels more natural is that she's not so much practicing the basic spell she's already learned as she is fine-tuning her spell to choreograph the way the animals fly through the air. If the writers want to continue to show Twilight practicing magic, they should do it this way. If it's a new kind of spell that we haven't seen before, then that would be a totally different story. But for all of the magic Twilight has already learned the basics of, I like to see them take this approach with it. I like the sudden personality shift of Fluttershy in this opening scene where her concern for the safety of her animal friends causes her to threaten Twilight. It's shocking and funny all at once while still remaining in character for her. In fact, all of Fluttershy's moments of comedy in this scene here are well written, animated, and voice acted. Spike makes a nice little reference to Winter Wrap-Up here, and I love it. It also shows how Twilight is in fact improving in her magic over the course of the series. This is also reminiscent of the very first episode where we saw Trixie, Ghostbusters, where Spike is making a similar remark about how much Twilight has improved with her magical abilities, even down to Twilight blushing at his compliment. It's a great little moment of deja vu. Twilight then reveals that the reason she's been honing her magic is because she's been assigned by Princess Celestia to perform some magic tricks for the delegates from Saddle Arabia that will be visiting Ponyville in the coming days. Suddenly, Rainbow Ex Machina comes flying in frantically to tell Twilight there's an emergency in town and she has to come quickly. When Twilight enters the crowd to see what the commotion is about, we are greeted with the return of the great and powerful Trixie! We hadn't seen her for 50 episodes, and I for one was really excited to see her return in this episode. Before a Canterlot wedding and the introduction of my favorite villain, Queen Chrysalis, Trixie was my favorite antagonist in the show. I liked how she could be a source of conflict, and a cute one at that, without being evil-hearted. I still to this day adore Trixie as a character, and she's easily one of my top 10 favorites in the show. Look who's back. Snips and Snails. I have to say, these are my two most hated characters in the show, and I'm even kind of offended that the most consistently reoccurring male characters in the show are portrayed as bumbling idiots. I may be overanalyzing this, but I really worry that Snips and Snails give the impression to little girls that all boys who aren't handsome or attractive are just stupid and not worth their time. I mean, why the hell are these two still so loyal to Trixie after Twilight called her on her BS back in Season 1? Perhaps it's just the power of boners. Perhaps Snips and Snails just have the hots for Trixie and do all of her bidding with the hopes of getting laid. I mean, I can't really blame them. Trixie is quite the hottie. Huh? What? I didn't say Trixie was hot. Who said I wanted to pour honey down her body and then lick it off? 'Cause I didn't. Oh boy. I need a distraction. Hey, look every pony! Larson made Derpy an Alicorn princess!
Many months later.
Is it safe to come out and continue the review? Okay, moving on. You'd think that at some point, Snips and Snails' common sense would interject and tell them to stop bending to this girl's every whim because she's a bad pony. Nope, they still bow at her hooves like little poodles. Damn it, I really hate Snips and Snails. Trixie, obviously still holding a grudge against Twilight for showing her up back in Season 1, challenges her to a magic duel.
He said it! He said it!
And, well, I'll let Trixie detail the stakes in her gorgeous voice.
Winner stays, loser leaves Ponyville forever!
Trixie then tells Twilight about what she's been up to since that fateful episode 5 of the series, and how she was mocked and ridiculed everywhere she went because of those events. Trixie even shows how she got a job at the rock farm that belongs to Pinky's family, which shows that they are in fact still maintaining that business after all these years of Pinky living in Ponyville. Damn, that character development though, so good. I'm probably going to hell for laughing at this, but after the events of Too Many Pinkie Pies, this bit with Trixie throwing Pinky's mouth in the trash was priceless. Realizing that Trixie won't stop terrorizing Ponyville unless she agrees to her challenge, Twilight reluctantly accepts and duels Trixie.
It's time to
This duel scene between Twi and Trixie is very well animated. The events that are going on aren't that epic compared to other things we've seen in the series up to this point, but it still carries the same level of atmosphere about it, and I absolutely love it. Despite her best efforts, Twilight loses the duel and is banished from town. Trixie even takes the extra measure of encasing the town in a protective glass bubble to make sure Twilight can't return. Perplexed by Trixie's seemingly impossible abilities, Twilight ventures into the Everfree Forest to consult with Zecora on the matter.
use the Force. Yes. Feel it.
Trixie is the highest level unicorn!
I was never a super big fan of Zecora before this episode, and I still don't think she'd make it onto a list of my favorite characters, but her appearance in this episode does have me a bit curious about the extent of her wisdom on magic and how she knows it all. It would be really nice if we got a Zecora-focused episode sometime in the future, but given how the writers have chosen to make her speak in rhymes, I would be a bit afraid that they would burn themselves out trying to find a way to make all of her lines rhyme, and as a result, the story would suffer. Perhaps if multiple writers worked on such an episode, it could be more of a possibility, but I guess only time will tell if we will ever dive deeper into Zecora's history. One thing that popped into my head as I was rewatching this episode for this review is, what are the CMC doing while Trixie has turned Ponyville into her image and cast a huge gloomy darkness over the town? I mean, we do see them later in the episode helping the main six, but with their sisters here in the Golden Oaks library, I can't help but fear that they're alone and terrified. Well, maybe not Apple Bloom, since she's got Granny Smith and Big Mac to look out for her, but what about Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo? How are they handling this takeover of Ponyville? I'm glad the writers didn't waste time exploring that, but that sad thought just popped into my head during this scene. Fluttershy finds a book that details exactly what Trixie's necklace is, and how only Trixie can take it off. Jeez, this library is like plot device central this season, isn't it? The ponies ultimately decide that they are going to have Fluttershy sneak out of Trixie's force field and relay this new information to Twilight. Once again, we see Rainbow Dash being totally inconsiderate towards Fluttershy's feelings. Can we, stop having these two interact so much, or at least in a more positive light? That'd be great. So Fluttershy manages to sneak out with the help of her beaver friends in an adorable little spy bunny outfit designed by Rarity. Her bird friends tell her that they've spotted Twilight in the forest and they take her to go see her. After a quick chat with Zecora, which proves that most of that magic training was just filler for the episode, Zecora advises Twilight to use the Six. Twilight then devises a plan to re-enter Ponyville by challenging Trixie to a rematch, this time with Twilight wearing an amulet of her own that she claims was given to her from Zecora and is from beyond the Everfree Forest. Huh, beyond the Everfree Forest. Now that is someplace I'd like to see in the future. Twilight instantly starts blowing Trixie's magic out of the water straight out of the gate, so much so that Trixie is in awe and doesn't even retaliate. I could have made all kinds of jokes here, including one about Rule 63 being canon in the show, but after Trixie steals Twilight's amulet and takes off her own, it's revealed that the mystical amulet from beyond the Everfree Forest is just a simple doorstop and holds no magic qualities whatsoever. This kind of ruins all sense of amazement and wonder in this scene for me. It's even further muddied up by a botched moral.
Zecora taught me so much about magic while I was in exile. She even taught me when not to use it. My magic alone wasn't powerful enough to take on the Alicorn amulet head-to-head. So I needed to use a different kind of magic. The magic of friendship.
No, Twilight. This wasn't the magic of friendship that you used to defeat Trixie. This is the magic of cheating. It could be argued that it was a necessary evil to defeat Trixie, and I would have to admit that in the sense of the plot, that's a valid point to raise, but this is a very bad thing to teach kids. This doesn't send the message that friends will help you in your time of need, like M.A. Larson wanted to portray here. It sends the message that if you're down and out, just get your friends to help you cheat. I'd go as far as to say this is probably the second worst moral in the entire series. What's the worst, you ask?
Dear Princess Celestia, I wanted to share my thoughts with you. Ahem. I didn't learn anything.
After a scene showing the visit from the Saddle Arabian delegates who look oddly more like Celestia than normal ponies, Trixie is seen performing the spell that Twilight was originally practicing at the start of the episode. She's redeemed and she apologizes for her behavior. Some say this reformation is too quick, but I'd argue that based on how bad Trixie was feeling since that episode in Season 1, she wanted to be reformed from the get-go. However, once she discovered about the Alicorn amulet, she figured instead of trying to better herself, she could attempt a comeback. Also, it's important to remember that the Alicorn amulet corrupts the wearer, so any darker personality trait that Trixie exhibited while wearing it should be dismissed and not be considered as legitimate character growth for Trixie, as they were more than likely just a side effect of wearing the amulet. Also, duh. So, what did I think of Magic Duel? I don't think it was a standout moment for Season 3, as there are far better episodes this season, but the return of Trixie is something the fans were anticipating since Season 1, and it did not disappoint. The pacing wasn't the greatest, and there wasn't much development for any of the characters beyond Trixie. In fact, we hit the character reset button for Snips and Snails in this episode, but Trixie's appearance, her dialogue, and her character development does hold this episode up for me despite some of the boring elements in its horrendously bad moral. As usual, I like to rate episodes on a 3-tiered system of rewatch it, watch it once, or skip it. Magic Duel gets a solid watch it once rating from me. If you're a diehard Trixie fan, you won't be let down with her appearance in this episode, but beyond that, this is a painfully average episode that likely won't warrant a second viewing for anyone not obsessed with Trixie. As always, I'm Critical Thought, and I will see you all in my next video. Never stop thinking critically.